first time I saw Glass Harp. I got to sit in on their sound check.
Beautiful.
And I never knew that Phil Keaggy could make a guitar sound like a violin.
Oh, beautiful.
It was
always.
amazing.
Yeah, he always with the volume control. Did all that, yeah. Phenomenal. There, Phil Keaggy, there's brilliant guitar players everywhere. Smooth, fluid, beautiful.
I joined a group in the summer of '65 called the Squires. These guys were 3 to 4 years older than me. I was the little kid in the band, and I was playing clubs and everything. From the Squires, I was in that group for a couple of years. We made a 45 RPM called Batmobile and I Don't Care. And then I went to a group called the Volume 4. The Volume 4 changed its name to the New Hudson Exit. We cut a record on Date Records, and it was a pretty good little song. And then from there, I went out to California for half a year, my family. Came back, and that's when I started Glass Harp with John. We had Steve Marklin in the band, who played bass, and then Johnny Carazino played bass. And then in '69, Daniel joined our group, and that's where we really became what we are today.
Well, Cleveland, within the last 2 years, has been able to break artists. And when I say break artists, a radio station gets behind a product and plays it, and the audience is so receptive to this that there is created a demand. Concerts here have been very successful.
Part-time love. But if you want me, baby, you got to give it all. I can't take it anymore. No, no, no. Something you said is getting the sound. Everybody's twisted and changing your thoughts around.
Those bands in that mid-60 range, I'd say like 65, 66 up through like 69. There wasn't nearly as many of us back then as what finally started exploding in the 70s and stuff. But I selfishly want to say that I think that 65 to 69 was like the real golden era if you were involved in that. Because even musicians that were older than me were still teenagers. They might have been just 18, but a lot of us were 16, 17 years old. And to be in a notable band at the time, solidly established, under management, playing a lot, doing openings for bigger name bands, that kind of stuff, was just like, you thought you had it all at this point. Like, wow. I mean, granted, none of us had maybe a big record contract at that time or doing any tour work, but you could say the bands that you opened for and what have you. And so it was a huge influence because of that. But the local boys themselves, I was probably closest to everybody in the choir. Just got to know them well. The kids in the choir were under the same management. So a lot of times we did double billings together and stuff like that, which was a great combination. The choir, as you may know, were really good with harmony stuff. Bryson was just killer for doing, like, we got to do Birds. He could do Jim McGuinn 12-string stuff, you know, really good like that.
Yesterday, who would know that we'd be here today? Who could say? Who would ever know? But I never ever let you go. When I think of you, I wish you'd lay in my arms for a while. The way you smile, understand, just to sit and to hold my hand, as I often do. I sit and think of you, my love, my friend, and I will love you until the bitter end.
People influence you, and then if you establish yourself well enough as a notable musician, then you were starting to get tapped on the shoulder about, hey, do you want to think about this or that? And I guess we all were willing to take that risk and do it because you never knew, like, will this be the magical combination of people that's our ticket to ride stuff. Everybody was aimed for making it. That was the whole thing. Disappointing part of it is most of us don't. I came close to it myself, but for those who didn't, who get totally discouraged at this point in their life, thinking like, well, there's not a chance now, I never understood the people that actually got out of it. I'm done, I'm finished, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's like, I've always identified myself as a musician. Why would I ever give that up? The idea of making it or not should be really secondary.
Through the good times and the bad, when you're happy, when you're sad, through the good times, not yet here, I will always hold you near. As I often do, I sit and think of you, my Lord, my friend, and I will love you until the stars fall from the sky, until the day I die, till the bitter end. Thank you.
On that cell, and my mother played rock and roll while she ironed on a radio at the end of the iron boat. I didn't go in, it was perfect, man. But I got to hear Cleveland rock and roll in general, because it started right here. And I just happened to be here around the time it started. here. My son is one of them, who is an amazing artist, and I can't understand why 10,000 record companies aren't coming after the kid. So, that's just one example, and there are many more. Cleveland has like total talent. I'm gonna say more to Chicago, New York City, Los Angeles. Cleveland has always been a music town.
Ringo doing in it, but Ringo's feel is phenomenal. As a drummer, he's phenomenal.
I love Ringo.
Great swing drummer. I mean, and that's the other thing. Those English drummers, from a drummer's perspective, for me, they used to swing. Mitch Mitchell swing. Keith Moon swings. These guys swing. American drummers, they weren't swinging like that in rock bands. They were stiff. They weren't swinging. So there was a big part of that John Bonham would tell you to swing, and these guys.
Joe Vitale.
Yeah, Joe Vitale, yeah.
Very powerful drummer.
Yeah, hits hard. Goomba, good guy, can't mess with that. Every Italian's a good player. Just with you.
When they were starting, I was really liking rock and roll, but my father said there would be no rock and roll in my house. So anyway, I think a lot of our fathers said the same thing. But so my influences when I was young were like, Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, all the jazz guys and the big band people. My father had a great record collection, and he would always, every day, he'd be so excited to, now listen to this drummer, and play something like from Jimmy Dorsey or something like that. I was like, okay, I was just a little kid. And, but then I heard the drums on, Elvis songs, and I said, well, listen to that, isn't that cool? We had this thing all the time, about that. But no, I really appreciated the people that he introduced me to musically, and the drummers, and I still listen to them. And they're you grow to appreciate them when when you're 7 years old. It didn't mean much to me other than that's cool. But as I look back, these guys were like super musicians and great players, and I was glad I was exposed to all that.
To me, in rock and roll years, the 50s started in 55 when Elvis came out, and that would be from 55 to 64. That to me was the 50s. The 60s, for me, went from 64 to 74. 64, of course, when the Beatles came out. But I, like a lot of guys, saw Elvis on TV when I was 9 years old, and I got the rock and roll fever because I said, I want to do that.
That's kind of a hard question, because when I did the radio for a while. When I did the radio, there was just so many great people that surprised me. Like if you start off at the beginning, I'd have to say the choir. The original choir was probably my favorite time when I wasn't in it, the choir. But then, you go through, how big is Cleveland? Tracy Chapman, I mean, does she count? There's just so many. Joe Walsh is a classic.
But then I saw a polka band at a wedding when I was about 7 or 8. And they had an electric bass guitar and an accordion and a drummer. And it was the first time I think I ever heard live music. And I stood looking at the bass guitarist, just fascinated with this low frequency sound, So it was bass from there.
I think we're both pretty proud of what we did in music and proud of the city of Cleveland.
Oh, yeah,
and all
Cleveland's...
the great music that's come out of Cleveland and the players and what they've done. It's very impressive. It doesn't happen in a lot of the rest of the country. Although I'm sure that the rest of the country on their own have their individual little music communities and their music scenes, but not like Cleveland. There were so many variables, the power of the radio stations and the way things were back then, it was almost a necessity to break your product in Cleveland if you were going to make it.
I was in local bands very early. So early that we played folk music. We were doing Kingston Trio and, Four Freshmen, stuff. We used to play at Farragher's, if you remember what Farragher's is. It used to be on South Taylor years ago. And just played with buddies of mine, 2 guitars and a set of drums. So I did that and just played drums for quite a while, actually, until I got to college, until I was in college. And I was at Ohio State in a band called the Governors. Good band. And we were wasting our time in college. We had a great time playing music, but we were horrible college students. And I replaced Jimmy Fox as a drummer in the Governors. Jimmy left Ohio State and went to Kent, where he met Joe Losch. And I replaced Jimmy in the Governors as the drummer.
Actually, when it all started, we were in grade school. And it was like an unbelievable time because it's when the Beatles, the Stones, Cream, Fresh Cream, everything was happening. Jeff Beck, the Yardbirds, and then Hendrix came along. Anyway, I was in grade school at St. Christine's in Youngstown, Ohio, okay? And my other cats and my roommates and everything at the school was John Safair from the Glass Harp, Phil Kagi from the Glass Harp, Myron Grumbacher from Pat Benatar, and Danny Pecchio, who also was with the Glass Harp and with Michael Stanley also. And we all grew up at the same high school, St. Christine's in Youngstown, Ohio. And that's how we got to know each other. And then we started little garage bands through that. But Phil was already playing. He was playing down at YSU at the Penguins Roost every night when he was in 7th and 8th grade at St. Christine's, and he was always getting home late, and it was unbelievable. He was a monster back then.
Locally, when I was a teenager, some of the local bands that were popular back then, like the Mike Roncone Band, there was a Del Sinchak Band, and what really took me over the top was I went to a rock and roll review at Stambaugh Auditorium here. They had all the names at that time. They had Little Richard, Richie Valens, just a bunch of people on this show, and I saw that and I wanted to do that. Actually, I didn't have these high goals of being anybody famous. I just wanted to play on stage at Stambaugh Auditorium. I thought it was so cool to be there. So that's kind of what got me going.
In my family, when I was in Pennsylvania, my father had a big band, and my father was the accordion player. My uncle happened to be the drummer. And they rehearsed in our basement. So I kind of saw that, And then my older brother, Primo, played snare drum in the marching band in Pennsylvania. So I was kind of around it, and I don't know exactly what drove me, but in our attic, I went upstairs and I had 2 small benches, a little one to sit on and one was a little taller. And I would go and get my mother's butter knives. And I've told this story a million times, but I'd sit up there and put all those old 50s rock and roll records on, Peggy Sue and all that, stacked it on a 45 player, and just played to those records.
Quote, end quote, El Schegnato Terrible. Stand aside from the bar if you haven't come to drink. Throw the packman in the sink, give me whiskey in my glass. Bourbon tastes me, but it sure be Listerine to get your breath twice clean, to get you high twice fast. Renata Wild Turkey, Jack Daniels and fine. Keep your gin and tonic and your ripple wine. Tequila in the pinch of vodka's alright. Got a roar in my ears and a burn in my eyes. I'm a skinny little boy from Cleveland, Ohio, come to chase your women and drink your beer.
I had every intention of being a chemical engineer until one time I was at a little coffee house called The Well on Euclid Avenue. It was a church coffee house. I think it was It was run by the Unitarians. A guy named Dewey Fagerberger ran it, and they had what they would call now an open mic, but it was a hoot night. And there was a gal who sang "Cold Tattoo" by Billy Ed Wheeler, and that song just I want to do that. I want to sing with a guitar, and I play French horn in the band. I was kind of a drama geek. I was like on the stage crew. And you know, it was something that, it was not sports. I was kind of like a swimmer, you know, and not so much into team sports. It was just something that just drew me right in, and I went, man, I want to do that. So I got a guitar for my 15th birthday, and that was the beginning of everything.